Well, good morning. Happy Wednesday. It is tax day. Have you done your taxes yet? It is the day that you must mail. It used to be, years ago before the internet, that you mailed your taxes by today, and that was it. I mean, you wanted to make sure it got postmarked by today, but it would take a month or 2 months for the IRS to finally process the return and send you a check if you were going to receive, or send a check if you were going to send a check and clear your bank. Now everything is done so electronically. It's absolutely amazing. You'd think that the cost of doing business with our government would be decreasing because there's just so many more efficiencies, but it seems like it goes the other direction. Oh my goodness. Yep. Well, there you go. That's the way it is. Happy tax day, and hope you have a wonderful day, all day. Man, you used to have to. What time does the post office? What's the last time? I got to get there before then. And of course, back then we used a calculator and a tax table. Nothing was electronic. Oh my goodness, it was just so much different back then. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad I did my taxes a month ago, and I think filed electronically. And the transactions are done electronically. I mean, it's just everything's electronic today. That's what it is. And I know that somewhere along the line, there's an artificial intelligence agent that's looking through my tax return to make sure I've got everything covered that is supposed to be there. And so I'm sure that if I made a mistake, they will let me know, but I'm pretty sure I didn't make a mistake. My tax return isn't as complicated. At one point when you own your own business, many, many moons ago, you have to file all the corporate tax returns and then the Schedule Ks to everybody and all the different things. If you were working out of your home, you had to decide if you were going to declare a home office deduction, which they said never do because it'll come back and haunt you. You had to use the home office as a home office. I mean, you couldn't use it for anything else. It was just the home office. And there were so many rules and restrictions around it. Most people didn't claim the home office deduction. The better deduction was mileage, because I always had a cheap car. And so the cost of mileage for me was less than what I would get reimbursed from the IRS. So, you had to keep track of every mile and, log every mile. And so that's what you did. All right. I guess that's it. Yeah. Birthdays. We have no birthdays today. Our next birthday is next week. So I'm going to close that out. And I appreciate all of you joining me this morning. I pray that you're having a blessed day. This should be an interesting Bible study. We're continuing in Deuteronomy. We are in Deuteronomy 25, and there's 38 chapters in Deuteronomy. So we're basically just, we're being reminded of all the different things that Israel is supposed to do as they go into the promised land. This is the last shot. And then once they're in the promised land, then we get the stories of how they conquered Joshua and the promised land. And then you get the period of the judges, and then the period of the kings, and then it all falls apart. And then you get Jesus. But this is the last opportunity to have the law reinforced, the Mosaic law. And so it's good that they're just going through it all again and making sure that everybody's clear. This is what you're supposed to do. And if you can simply follow these laws, then life will go well for you. But if you don't follow these laws, society gets out of hand, people get out of hand, and it all falls apart. And which is what actually does happen many, many times, but then finally falls apart for good until Jesus. And then it all comes back together again. All right, so Let's just beginning in chapter 25. Let's begin reading in verse 1. When people have a dispute, they are to take it to the court, and the judges will decide the case, acquitting the innocent and condemning the guilty. If the guilty person deserves to be beaten, the judge shall make them lie down and have them flogged in the presence with the number of lashes the crime deserves. But the judge must not impose more than 40 lashes. If the guilty party is flogged more than that, your fellow Israelites will be degraded in your eyes. You know, we don't do 40 lashes anymore, do we? But I have often wondered, as I think about our world around us, we basically get dragged into court. You know, if you're convicted of a crime, let's say I was convicted of shoplifting, right? And so if I go into the court system and you know, what is going to be, I might spend 6 months in jail or a year in jail. And that is not a pleasant experience for sure. But what if I knew that if I was found guilty, that they were going to take off my shirt? And I'm sure you know that you can survive 40 lashes. It's going to hurt a lot, but you will likely survive it. And I don't think that the 40 lashes is as important as everybody in the community seeing that you get 40 lashes, right? I wonder if some of these are deterrents that we've somehow lost, because we try to make everything so the only alternative, the punishment is to go to jail and survive jail, which most people can survive jail. I mean, although I've done a lot of jail ministry, and there is one of the things. There was a law signed. Apparently, there's a lot of sexual abuse in jail, like a lot. And it's kind of under the radar. Nobody sees it. Nobody reports it, but it happens all the time. I mean, it's a big part. And so I don't know when, but a number of years ago, there was a law passed that really tried to tighten up the ability for somebody to report a crime like that and to try to eradicate it, which they haven't been able to do. But because I've done a lot of jail ministry, I've taken that training and I've learned about it. And so going to jail really today is, it's not just being separated from your family or the ones you love, or being, separated from society. I mean, there are really some severe things that I would rather take 40 lashes, to tell you the truth. I'd rather take the 40 lashes and have house arrest than go into the jail system. The jail system is not pleasant at all. And when we create a church in the jail, which is the goal of this jail ministry, is to create a church, they kind of look out for each other, but it's still a challenge. But we are relational creatures, and if you can create a church in jail, then even in jail, you can find love and compassion for fellow human beings, which is what we're called to do. So, but I do wonder. I do wonder what would happen if we turned back on that flogging. It would save a lot of money. It's 6 months in jail costs a lot of money. Flogging doesn't really cost anything. You just flog them. I think it's in the many Islamic countries, when you steal, you don't go to jail. Nobody goes to jail. They just cut off your hand. Which sounds really, really horrible, but it's pretty inexpensive. I mean, it's a pretty finite way of identifying anybody who's been to jail or has stolen, or B, the cost is just the cost of a Band-Aid, I guess, or a couple Band-Aids. I don't know. All right, verse 4. Do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. This is basically to say that when an ox is working, when anybody is working, they should have the nutrition. I mean, this, I guess you could say proverb, but it's a law. I mean, basically, if anybody is doing good work, you shouldn't muzzle them. For me, well, obviously, as a pastor, Paul uses this verse to say that pastors should be paid because they're doing work. So there's that. But the other thing is that if somebody comes to you and says, I have an idea and I'd like to try it in the church, and let's say that it's they're going to do something that's worth $50,000, but it's only going to be, their labor is going to be free, but they're going to need 20,000. Let's say we're going to build a building, and somebody says, I'll build a building for you and I won't charge you for the labor. Then it is worthwhile to the kingdom of God to give them the resources they need to get that done, because in the end, it's all going to be a lot cheaper than if you have to hire the full entire thing to be done. So if you have a bunch of people that come together and do a project, let's say it's a cleanup day, and everybody's going to show up and do cleanup, and they're going to rake all the leaves and pull all the weeds and make everything beautiful, which we've had several of these days. It is worth any amount of money to provide coffee and donuts or fruit, or whatever it is that's necessary for them to feel like they're, not only just appreciated, but that they've got, some nutrition for the day. It all comes from this command, and well worth it. We should not be stingy. That's probably the way it should be said. It shouldn't be stingy with people who are donating their time, basically. We should, if the ox is working, the supplemental stuff to the ox should be given. For sure. Because ultimately the kingdom is blessed immensely by the ox working, or in the world around. When the ox works, everything works. All right, enough of that. Verse 5. If brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. So you got two brothers. One brother dies. The other brother, you probably wonder, what in the world is going on here? But in the Old Testament, this is kind of a key thing. In the Old Testament, families, typically the oldest brother inherited the vast majority of the wealth from the family. And the more wealth you have, the more it attracts, the more stability there is. So, what we do today is if someone dies and they've got 4 kids, then, all that money is equally divided among the 4 kids. And it's okay. It's not a bad system. But if all of the money went to the oldest son, and the whole entire estate went to the oldest son, and if that son protects that estate well, there's going to be more to divide up and to care for the family. And this is how kings and queens of England, live. That it all goes to the oldest son, and the oldest son inherits the whole entire royal wealth. But then he is responsible to make sure that the whole entire family of whoever's in that is taken care of. And so these laws were basically to help protect the wealth as much as anything. But also it was just a different time. So if a brother dies, then the older brother gives his widow a son and names it after it, so that there's this inheritance of longevity of the dynasty that goes on. And if he doesn't do it, so that would be what happens normally. But if he doesn't, in verse 7, however, if a man does not want to marry his brother's wife, she shall go to the elders at the town gate and say, my husband's brother refuses to carry on his brother's name in Israel. He will not fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to me. Then the elders of the town shall summon him and talk to him. And if he persists in saying, I do not want to marry her, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, take off one of his sandals, spit in his face, and say, this is what is done to the man who will not build up his brother's family line. That man's line shall be known in Israel as the family of the unsandaled. Dun, dun, dun. It's all shame, right? This is a shame thing. Now, why wouldn't he do this? Well, obviously, because she's going to have, of the estate, he's going to have now more mouths to feed out of the estate, and they're not really his kids. They're estate kids, but they're not his direct line. And there might be issues then of the two women, the two sister-in-laws not getting along. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this. But ultimately, his duty is to make sure that his brother's line is carried on. That's the bottom line. She should have a son, and then the line can go through that son, and all these things, all the rights and privileges she would have then being in the estate, which is more attached to the male than it is the female. She would end up then having a claim in the estate through her son. And a son to care for her when she gets older. But if he doesn't want to do it, then, maybe they don't get along. I mean, there's a number of reasons why you wouldn't want to do this. Why, she goes and complains to the elders, and the elders throw a sandal. And the man's line shall be known in Israel as the family of the unsandaled. It just sounds so interesting. Oh my goodness. Verse 11. If two men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand. Show no pity. The male is very sensitive in the private parts. It's interesting. We always taught our kids, when we referred to that part of the body, we called it the private parts. I mean, that's what it is. Your private parts. And for a guy, it's a very, very sensitive place. Most women, unless the guy is incredibly strong-willed or has, a whole lot more ability than most men, you grab that part of the body, it's gonna hurt for a long time. But if the woman does that, she gets her hand cut off. And I'm not entirely sure why this is. Is it because she's violating his privacy, his private parts? Or is it because in a man, that's just a place that will win the argument for sure? I guarantee you that. There was a James Bond movie where he's tied up and they use some sort of instrument to hit him in his private parts. And he's able to survive that. Most men, 99.999% of men could not survive that. I guarantee you. You have to have special ability. That's all I have to say. Verse 13. Do not have two differing weights in your bag, one heavy and one light. Do not have two differing measures in your house, one large and one small. You must have accurate and honest weights and measures so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. The Lord your God detests anyone who does these things, anyone who deals dishonestly. And obviously, weights and measures, they don't mean much. I mean, they do, actually. We have, there's a couple, is it Lay's potato chips? Well, sometimes you open the bag and there's only one or two potato chips in them. I mean, that is not fair. I mean, if it says it's a 5-ounce bag, it should have 5 ounces of food in it. And there are laws and regulations around here, but you can't weigh every bag. And so every once in a while, a large bag, or I've never seen it with a large bag. Like, hey, look, I got 6 ounces in a 5-ounce bag. You never see that. It's always the other way around. But legally, we are entitled to whatever it is. And it's interesting. I bought grapes yesterday, $2.29 a pound for grapes. And they make you weigh it. And then you have to say, accept weight. And so that's how you keep everybody honest. If we're all using the same weights and measures, it makes society go well. If anybody is not using, if you were to go to Safeway and for whatever reason, a pound of grapes weighs as 2 pounds, then they are ripping you off, and it is bad for society. And God says it is important that everybody has the same weights and measures and that they're honest. That's how society works. If people are dishonest or try to game the system, they may gain, but it destroys the whole society. It's not just that one person is able to game the system, but it's like the whole system falls apart, because then you can't trust anything and you can't trust your fellow human being. And we are actually, there's a book called The Fourth Turning that was written about 20 years ago by these guys, and they said that there is a season of most cultures where people just don't trust each other. And when that happens, the whole thing falls apart. And they predicted that right now we would be in the fourth turning, basically from 2020 to 2028. I mean, 2025 to 2005 to 2028, basically, that we would be in the fourth turning, that there would be a lot of distrust in our society. They were looking at patterns and how this happens over time. And if you look around at society, we do not trust each other at all. I mean, 50 years ago, the most respected people in society, we don't respect those people anymore. We feel like everybody's gaming the system. Doctors, lawyers, judges, politicians, teachers. I mean, the people that we rely on to really be people of high integrity, we just don't feel anymore as a society that those people have any integrity. And it makes the whole society fall apart. But the good news is that in another couple years, we'll be getting through all that. And it's generational. The next generation will start to trust each other because they understand how important that is. All right, verse 17. Remember what the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt. When you were weary and worn out, they met you on the journey and attacked all who were lagging behind. They had no fear of God. And when the Lord your God gives you rest from all your enemies around you in the land he is giving you to possess as an inheritance, you shall blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So God has a long grudge for the Amalekites. They were leaving. If you remember the story, they were leaving, and there were some people of Israel that were just tired. The weak, they were at the end of the line. The Amalekites came, and they didn't fight the strong ones. They came into the back of the line and fought the weak. And so there was this big battle between the Israelites and the Amalekites, and Moses held up his staff, and when the staff was held up, the Israelites were winning, and when his staff went down, the Amalekites were winning, and eventually the Israelites won the battle. But God has a long memory on that. And so he's telling them, when you get into the land, you find Amalekites, destroy them. Do not forget. So that's a command. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. There is, the God is a God of justice. He does not let something like that go. In order for him to let something like that go, he has to become flesh and dwell among us, to take the punishment of all that upon his own son, and redeem it. All right. So that is chapter 26. I'm sorry, chapter 25. We'll get into chapter 26 next time. Let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thanks for this day, and watch over us till we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. And we will meet again for many, many more weeks until I go to summer camp, which is at the end of May, right after Memorial Day weekend. I'll be gone that whole week, but up until then, I'm here. So thanks for joining me. I pray you have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Blessings. Bye.